popculture.com presents Killer Klowns from Outer Space, a panel discussion featuring Suzanne Snyder, Grant Cramer, Harrod Blank, and Mike Martinez. Moderated by Michael Exler and recorded at the Horror Realm 2025 convention in Pittsburgh.
Everybody, thank you for waiting. And we have the cast of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Give them a hand and a round of applause.
So I suppose you're wondering why we gathered you all here today.
I'm going to first of all thank you for taking some time to speak with us today about the film. Real simple question to start. How did you all get involved in the film?
Speaking for Suzanne and I, we went, well, because it's kind of there's crossover. We went. They had a kind of a long audition process where we came in multiple times and auditioned with like different groups of, they were trying to cast the right chemistry for the three characters of Mike, John, and Debbie. We didn't, I think, know we had the job for a while, but they kept bringing us back, and apparently he knew that the director knew that Suzanne and I were the Mike and Debbie, but they were still grouping us with multiple people. So I don't remember how many times, but it was a bunch of auditions until they finally told us.
Yeah, there were a bunch of auditions, and my agent read the script. I was working on Return of the Living Dead, Part 2, and she read the script and she said, "You have got to read this script. Do not freak out when you see the title." I was like, seriously? But she said these guys, the Kyoto brothers, did Large Marge in Pee-wee's movie, and they are going to be the biggest special effects people in Hollywood soon. She said, "You've got to read it. It's going to be a cult classic." She told me that. And so I went in and we just started pairing up with different people till.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think we had to do the life raft in the back of the car scene a bunch of the times.
Yeah,
which was really painful to do with this beautiful young actress, Suzanne.
Well, I was brought on the film from the beginning as a stunt guy. We went to go meet with the Kyotos, look at the costumes, find out what kind of action could be done in the costumes, and we were there just looking at them, and they said, well, to figure out how everybody can move, somebody's going to have to put on the costume. And I kind of felt like the 13th warrior, because all of a sudden everybody was looking at me. So we put it on and we figured out how much movement we would have. And turns out I ended up becoming like one of the main stunt bozos of the film. And
before that, he was just a bozo.
Yeah, just a bozo. And I was also stunt double for Michael Siegel to drive the ice cream truck during the chase scenes.
Basically, he did everything that had to do with stunts on the movie. Besides playing the clowns, you were riding the motorcycle, right, on the side of the car.
Yeah, it wasn't a motorcycle. It was a special contraption that the special effects guy made that I controlled with switches in taped to my hands, with toggle switches to move the seat forward and back and swing it out to smash into the car and things like that.
And I just showed up to be an extra, honestly. So all of you aspiring actors and film people, sometimes you just got to show up with no expectations, and maybe you'll fit the need of the production, which is what happened with me, because I'm 6'4". I was playing college basketball. I was in good shape, and I showed up to be an extra in the crowd scene, and I showed up with my art car, which was a crazy car, which is really weird because then they had an art car in the script in the film, clown car, and then they said, "God, you're kind of a physical specimen. You think you could stay after and do some clowning and see if we can work with you?" And I said, "Sure." And then I did I think I did a drunk clown and a walked across the room drunk, and then they wanted me to choke somebody out, which was easy. And they said, "Could you?"
He's still doing that. He's still
They're still doing that, actually. We will be doing that tomorrow in the costume for the photo shoot. If any of you, but you have to tell me that you want to be choked out, otherwise it wouldn't be right.
Appropriate.
Yes, thank you. But was I?
Try to tap before you go completely unconscious.
Oh my goodness.
Or you can orchestrate your own skit. So you can have Grant and Suzanne do something, and you can have the two clowns do something. We've actually married a couple, right, Mike, with a Bible.
Yeah.
And I put my hand on the wife's head, and then
He had, I had.
Don't think about it. You're too young to get married.
Yeah, I held a gun to the groom's head.
We had one little girl. The parents said, "Well, we want you to try to steal our little girl." So I grabbed the little girl's arms and was pulling her, and the father was pulling the other arm, trying to get the girl back. That was a good one.
Was that when she split in half?
Yeah.
That was a tragedy.
But anyways, back to the
Of
story.
comic proportions.
Basically, I'm tickled to be here. I'm tickled to be part of this. I'm tickled that this is going on for 40 whatever years this is. Oh, not that many years.
Since I was
20.
like minus 25.
But I mean, it's an amazing ride. This has been such a, and we're like this weird Killer Klowns family now. We go to dinner together. We do yoga. We drink tequila.
Sing
Anyway,
karaoke.
yeah, he was hot
Post
last
him-
night. Who saw him last night? Yeah.
Put a tiara on my head, and now he's posting it on social.
We're gonna put him on Facebook. If you want to see Grant singing horses, wild horses, it'll be on Facebook later tonight.
So speaking of,
He's responsible for my 10 biggest, most embarrassing moments.
talking so many years later after you guys made the film, what do you think makes this film stand the test of time?
Practical effects.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. I mean, I think that they're just more human. I think that the effects kind of pull at your heart. You kind of get it, and it just feels more real. And I think that the Kyoto brothers did really great casting. I'm not saying, oh, they hired me, but I think that the chemistry on the set was really cool. And I think they also did something really different where he was wearing the tight pants and I was wearing the baggy clothes. He was a little bit more silly and kind of like, come on, let's go do this. And I was more like the smart one. So it was this juxtaposition that I think was really interesting also.
Yeah, I just think too that they came up with it's very original. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the hardest things that we've dealt with getting a sequel off the ground is because it doesn't fit in any normal box. You know what I mean? It's not a pure horror movie. It's not a pure sci-fi movie. It's not really a comedy. It's a little bit of all of those things, but it's also just very creative. It's like the gags. There's just a lot of very creative gags. I mean, the shadow puppets is pretty cool, right? And melting the guy, the security guy with the pies, and so I just think they came up with a lot of really really crazy things, and it has a story, but it's kind of just enough of a story to tie all the gags together. So, I kind of think because people. How many people here have watched this movie like more than once? Right? And the funny thing is you I remember when I went to see this movie years ago called Manhunter, and it was like, I thought this is like one of the best movies ever, and I went to see it like the next day, and I was like, because it was one of those movies that had so much tension, it was like, it wasn't the same, right? It was still good, but Killer Klowns, but you get what I'm saying, right? Killer Klowns, you can kind of watch it a lot. It's like comfort food in a way, right?
And it's a horror film, but it's not gory at all. I mean, kids are like the biggest fan. We're going into like our 5th generation of fans watching the movie, so that helps a lot.
How many people have a tattoo of Killer Klowns? Anybody? Whoa!
Not here? Okay.
Wow, we've had a lot of tattooed people.
I think also the bright colors, it's a horror
Right.
film, but it's all these happy, bright colors. And even the music is like carnival music and circus music. So it's kind of, in a way, more happy, and then something happens, but it's not so intense because it's got that bright color.
It's kind of an entryway drug, you know, to horror. You know, I think the coolest thing that I still have in my my work bag, I have a card that a girl, actually, Suzanne got one at the same time, but it was basically saying, you know, this is like, my grandfather fell in love with this movie, and then he turned my dad onto it, and it became their bonding thing, and now it's like our whole family's bonding movie. And just thank you so much because you helped bring her. You read something like that and you go, wow, this is kind of neat, right? That it's, as Mike said, it's this kind of multi-generational thing. So that's, to me, kind of the coolest thing about it.
What type of director was Steven? Was he collaborative, or was he very strict and wanted what he wanted?
No, I thought he was very collaborative. I mean, he knew what he wanted, but we could go to him at any time and make a suggestion. And even if he didn't really like it that much, he would still say, "Yeah, we'll try one like that." You know what I mean? And a lot of the lines, he let us come and say, "Well, what if I said this instead?" Because we would be sitting around, rehearsing our lines, and sometimes something just was a little awkward coming out of your mouth, and we would say, "What about this?" So I thought he was. He had a very clear vision of what he wanted, but within that vision, he was very open to our input.
I think the brothers had a clear vision, right? Because so Stephen was like the voice for all three of them, right?
Yeah.
For directing us and what we needed to do. But he was really open and kind and listened, and then kind of got you to do what he wanted you to do.
With the Clowns, he couldn't direct us while we were being the clowns, because a lot of times the mask had motors in the head so they could remotely blink and move the eyes and everything. And when that was happening, we couldn't hear a thing because the sound from the motor resonated to our skull, and all we heard was like the motors going. And so he would have a scene, he would just kind of show us ahead of time what he wanted, and then we would just have to do it and hopefully get it right or just keep going, unless we were stepping on our own feet or something and have to do it again. But he was just kind of very relaxed. He just told us what he was looking for and let us find it.
One scene, I know you guys weren't the clown for it, but when they go into the spaceship and the chubbier clown comes out before he sucks the blood out of the one cotton candy thing, I just thought it was so funny how he's looking to make sure it's ripe enough.
That was Harrod.
It was
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when he told you he was a specimen? He actually meant he was 2 or 3 specimens.
Is that something that was in the script, or is that something that you kind of talked about, or
No, that was in the script.
was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And what was interesting about the costumes is they had for that character they had like 4 pillows in the gut, and I think a couple in the back, and it was really, you had to waddle. I mean, you couldn't really walk very well with them, so it sort of forced you to walk a certain way. But that was the scene when I really realized that this was an unusual film. And when I was sucking the blood and I'm watching it come up the straw through my mask, and it goes around the little curlicue, and I'm just like, what the hell am I doing?
Hey, Harrod, I never got to ask you, what did they actually have in there? What did it taste like?
Corn syrup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was red dyed corn syrup. Yeah.
Should have asked for like a Shirley Temple or something.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that not having a major backstory for the clowns helped out in the film?
They're thinking about, if we ever do a sequel, they were talking about having Mike and I be old man clowns. So we would be the old wise clowns. I'm not so keen on that, but but they also, I'm tangenting here, but they had a scene where they would come up through a manhole cover in the French Quarter of New Orleans, which is, I'm partly from New Orleans, so I thought that would be just really a killer image.
Yeah.
But I don't know what part of the script that is anyways, but the backstory, in that case, it would be that we were the aged clowns, and then we would be coaching the younger clowns how to do stuff.
But you mean a backstory, kind of like where they came from and why they were there and all that
Right.
kind of stuff?
Because it's just, they just appear.
I think since they just appear and nobody knows where they came from or why they're there at the time, so the backstory didn't really matter to us. We just knew we were there to kill people, collect them and eat them.
The only thing
But the Kyotos are like, they were massive fans. I mean, Killer Klowns is an homage for them to like the monster and Aliens from Outer Space movies that they grew up watching. So when you like, do you ever find in like Body Snatchers or anything like that what they're there for? I mean, so I think they were kind of keeping with the trope of like, why are they here? Why are they doing, asking the question. And then if you end up getting a sequel, then you also give yourself room to lay out, to kind of figure it out. And by the way, a lot of the stuff that they've even done, even naming the characters and all that, like the clowns didn't have names when we shot the movie. The fans came up with those names, really. And so now a lot of the things that they've come up with are the things over the years that you guys as fans have kind of come up and suggested to them. So they incorporate all of that, and people have said, it'd be so cool if the clowns like had actually blah 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 blah, or going back to the clown planet, and so a lot of fans have given them ideas that I think they're planning on trying to incorporate into the movies as they go.
Very cool. That would be very interesting. What was John Vernon like on set?
He was awesome, guys. We were young actors, right? And he was Dean Wormser and Outlaw Josie Wales, and he did some iconic things, and he was an older, kind of intimidating guy, but we were just all a little bit in awe of him. He was so good. He was always in character. You didn't have to do much to act with him because he was this presence, right, when you were with him. But I loved it. I was, to me, I was just pinching myself all the time that I'm working with this dude. He was awesome.
Yeah, my experience with him is, I didn't realize until recently that you guys had your own condos, but John stayed at the same hotel with everybody, so we would hang with him by the pool and hot tub in the morning, having coffee and just chatting with him, and then since I was working stunts, I got to work with him one-on-one, like when he got killed and things. So I really enjoyed working with him. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he was so professional and so clear and grounded in his character. It helped you as an actor because he was so clear, and sorry, Stephen, but I think he really helped Steve with those scenes because he was so clear and he knew what he wanted and he knew what sounds would work and what looks would work. And I remember him talking about that in the scene. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I remember he for a guy who played a lot of very intimidating characters in movies, he also had great comic instincts. You know what I mean? A lot of those things that he did, where he would say, hey, how about if I did this, blah, 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 that are really funny moments or things that he came up with.
Yeah, he created
you forget that, how funny he was in Animal House, right? But he had great comic instincts. He just knew what was funny, knew what gag would work and stuff like that, knew just how to move his eyes and roll things and look, and he was a cool actor.
Really a really generous actor. Yeah, he was awesome.
Suzanne, if you could talk about filming the bathroom scene where the popcorn comes alive and attacks you.
So someone just asked me about that. He was like, "What are those clowns in the bathroom?" And so we'd been running, right? And I had popcorn on my clothing. So I took off my clothing, I threw it in the hamper, and then the popcorn became alive. And that, like what Grant was saying, there's an homage to all of these films that they grew up with. So this was the clown psycho scene.
Oh,
Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so, you know, it was really fascinating working with the Kyoto brothers because they step by step explained all the special effects to us and how it was going to happen. So they were really clear with me about how everything was going to be timed out and, you know, just how everything was going to work. And they showed me how it was going to work before we did it, so I understood what was going to happen. The teeth were very sharp and they hurt. They were actually really sharp. But yeah, it was just really fascinating working with them, and the clowns are scary looking, so it wasn't that hard to act with them. I mean, imagine having a clown come out of your hamper. And toilet.
Mike and
They're
Harrod,
both.
did you guys get any say in the clowns you portrayed, or was it just these are the ones you're going to do?
No, I mean, they were set there. They did they did pick certain clowns for me to do stuff because, like, when I got hit by the SUV and was on the hood of the car, they wanted to make sure, one, I could see, and two, the mask wouldn't come off, you know. And but I think that was about the only one. Other than that, the clowns are all already kind of picked for the scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was like an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
So they would throw, you know, different people in different outfits.
Mm-hmm.
But the big guy, Rocky, he's a basketball player. He mostly played Jumbo, and then he did. Mike did one scene, and I did a something small scene of Jumbo, but otherwise it was mostly Rocky.
Yeah.
Now, the scene in the drugstore, who was that?
You know, I thought it was me because I was there, but the Kyoto brothers confirmed that it wasn't actually me. But I was in the trash. I was the one lifting the trash can lid, and it was in the trash can. Yeah, and then they did all the other stuff where they had my hands doing the shadow puppets, but they also confirmed that I wasn't doing the wide shot. So they liked my handwork, but they used a different guy to be the clown in the wide shot.
I think that was Steve.
Yeah, so that was Steve doing it. So I did the hands, and I also did. I remember doing a lot of balloon twisting, but I think that got cut out of the movie. So I did a lot of like balloon dog making scenes with just my hands. Yeah, so I was like a hand actor.
There is a couple shots of the twisting.
Is it in there?
At least
Yeah.
one, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, before I forget, I wanted to let everybody know we're doing a photo shoot tomorrow. What time are we doing that?
Are we doing it? I didn't.
Are we doing it?
I don't know if
Yeah,
it-
it was a photo shoot tomorrow with costumes that they're coming tonight, I guess.
Oh, okay.
And
I
then,
don't know.
and also, I don't know if you all play the game that's out. We're doing an experiment on March 16th in Oaks, Pennsylvania, where we're going to play the game live with the 3 clowns. We were ideally going to have the whole crew play it, but they divided us up for some reason. I don't know why they did that. But now it's a test run, so we'll see if this works, and then I'm sure Grant and Suzanne will play the game at another time.
Yeah, basically, we're going to get our butts kicked by 5-year-olds playing.
But it will be live, and they're looking for participation and interaction. So I don't know how it works. I've never played the game.
So, Grant, talk about working with Michael and Peter, the comedy duo who played the Terenzi brothers. What was it like working with them?
Oh, they were great. They, they were a real comedy duo in real life. So they were about as closest thing to being kind of brothers. So they already had their repertoire. It's not like they had to find it. They kind of really already, knew what they were doing, and they're really nice guys. So. In all of our scenes, in the truck, we just goofed around. We kind of came up with all those little, routines, kind of like, turn right, left, no, right, like all that kind of stuff. We just had fun, and Steven let us run with it, and like I said, they'd been doing that for a long time, and they continued to be a comedy team, I think, for a while after we finished the film. So, so they were great, and they were easy to work with, and they were really funny.
Mike and Harrod, can you walk us through how you got into the clown costumes? What was that process like?
The costumes actually, well, except for the costumes just went on. The hard part was the masks were actually a thick latex instead of like the masks today. And so since depending on the mask, some had motors, some didn't, but our vision was challenged because we could only see like this because there were just little openings. And so what we had to do is get the mask, press our face into the mask and wiggle it around and get it in position and hold it there. And then they would seal it up the back. Because the masks that we wore were actually really tight against your face.
Tell them what they sealed it with.
Sometimes with Velcro, sometimes with glue, airplane glue. Harrod has an interesting story.
Yeah, okay. Well, you were asked, this is cover two of your questions, but basically they wanted to do the scene with the popcorn gun coming out of the elevator, and they had put me in costume, I don't know, maybe a half hour previous to that, and they glued the back shut with the airplane glue, and I'm not gonna lie, I was actually pretty high. and so then it was, it was a high action scene, and I remember doing it one time, and then Steven had to come up to me, and he said, "Look, Harrod, you've seen Rambo, right?" And he's yelling, actually, because I remember now, and I'm towering above him. So I'm way up here, and so I have to lean over, so if you could just visualize the set. So I'm leaning over, Steven's a lot shorter, and he's looking up at me, and he's like, "Harrod, have you ever seen Rambo?" I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "Do it like that, with incentive. You have to come out of that thing hard, and whip that gun around hard." And I'm like, okay, I'll do it, and so the next, here I am, half high, and in these big, huge clown shoes, and I come out of that, I'm determined, and you probably know I push things a little bit anyway, so I come out of that thing, pushed, and I did the scene, and I fired the popcorn gun, and everything went all right, and then I almost stepped off the edge, which literally was like a 6-foot drop, because they had just built this little set, and I didn't know it, and being high, it would have been a disaster, but I just barely made it. So I think if we did do work again, I would request that we don't use airplane glue.
Something tells me they have probably come up with a little bit better technology since then. That was a long time ago.
Oh, and you couldn't get out of the costume, and they would actually take a straight razor blade with no knife and just slit it and keep slitting it down, which also made me nervous because I thought, well, shit, if they miss, it's going to go right in my neck.
So did they have different clown masks for when they would scream? And like, I remember one scene where he opened his mouth up real wide and showed the gnarly teeth.
Yeah, they had an animatronic head with no mask on it that all the masks fit on, and that's how they were able to snarl and things like that, by cables and things like that for the close-ups.
But the servos, the servos were behind the eyes and the mouth, and they were really loud and uncomfortable, and you hear them whirring, as it does the action. So that was also difficult when I did that scene on airplane glue. It's very surreal.
By the way, we'd like if you have time to donate to Do Not Sniff airplane.com.
So Grant and Suzanne, you've been involved in many different type of films. What's some of the differences between filming, say, a drama versus a horror film?
It's kind of weird because to me, a horror film is just really a drama where everything is heightened, and Killer Klowns is really, if you notice it, like nobody's really. It's not like a Sam Raimi. It's not. I loved all the Evil Dead movies, but it's not like that, right? I mean, those movies actually have punchlines, and you're kind of winking to the camera all the time, right? You're kind of looking at the camera and saying, "Hey, I'm with you, and this is funny, and here's my funny line." But Killer Klowns, even when there's punchlines, they're played like very straight. Everything is played very straight, but the situation is completely absurd, right? So, and Steven wanted everything to be like over the top, but not goofy over the top, right? So he wanted it to be, to be like, you're really running for your life. This is really, he wanted it to be real, but super heightened. To the point where sometimes I thought I was overacting, and he'd go, no, that's exactly how I want it. There's a certain amount of trust you have to have between your director, because you're throwing yourself in and just hoping that when you see it, you're not gonna go, oh man, what the heck was I doing, right? So it's the same thing. It's just how much you ramp it up, how much you take yourself, up there, and you want and at the end of the day, the tone of the film, you want the reaction to fit the reality you're trying to portray. You know what I mean? So, if you're reacting to a car crashing and you're big, it works, right? But if you're reacting with that same reaction to something that's smaller, it can look like you're overacting. So, it's just all about fitting the tone of the movie right. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's funny, that question, I thought horror film versus drama. For me, as the actor, I guess I don't really think of it as a comedy or a drama or any of that stuff. It's all kind of like under the title of drama, right? And whatever's going on, you just have to live it and be it. And it's true, Steven wanted it to be really big. Not only did he want it to be big, but we didn't see any of the stuff that you guys saw. There was no circus tent when we were looking at it. There was no inside of the spaceship. We had to imagine it. And so he'd kind of tell us what it was like.
Sometimes he'd show us drawings or something of what we're supposed to be imagining, or
we had no
describe
idea.
it to us.
And then sometimes, I remember one time Grant and I weren't reacting the same way to the same thing. Do you remember that? And he was like, no, wait, you guys, because we were experiencing it, but we were experiencing based on our own imaginations. So he had to help us. That was
It's
really
kind of
funny
like if
when
somebody
he did
tells
that.
you, hey, there's a clown coming. Now, one person thinks the clowns are really scary. The other person thinks the clowns are funny. One person goes, the other person, they say, no, scary clown coming, really scary. He had to sometimes get us on the same page, because he's using descriptions that can be taken more than way
Different
than
ways. Yeah.
one way.
Yeah.
So do you guys know what the cotton candy was made of?
Kind of like the stuff you put on the inside of insulation. That stuff that they spray, that, right? It's exactly what it was. It wasn't like asbestos. It was, but it was that almost like fiberglassy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mike and Harrod, you had talked a little bit about being high and having a little challenge with that. What were some of the more difficult things you had to do with the stomach?
The hard thing about doing things with the clowns was, there's two parts of it. The hard part was being able to see, but at the same time, that kind of helped with the performance, because we had no peripheral vision. And so if the clown sees something, you almost had to pretend you heard something, because the only way you could see it is if you turned your whole head, to see what was going on. And it ended up giving it more of a predatory look, like you're looking through the eyes of a cat or something like that, And so it, same thing with the big feet. All of us ended up having to figure out a way to walk in them.
You guys ever walk in flippers before? When you go skin diving or something and you have those big flippers on your feet, it's kind of, and you have a difficult time to walk. It's kind of like walking in flippers.
And we had to, when we're running in those, you really had to high step it, you know, as you're walking, and that kind of gave it its own ridiculous look. And I don't know how many times multiple clowns would go down because you couldn't see. One guy steps over, you know, trips on his own toes. He goes down, the clown behind him can't see it, and he goes down. So all of a sudden we lose like 2 or 3 clowns and have to start all over again.
I would say one of the things that was difficult was just the fear of hyperventilation. So, and just sweating like inside the mask. And I think I was actually worried that my head was gonna shrink because I was sweating so much inside the mask. And I was just worried, like, God, is this bad for me? And the fear of hyperventilating, like passing out, like you can't get enough air, And I don't know if you had that issue, but...
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Maybe it was that airplane glue.
Yeah.
So when the clowns are going down the street collecting all the humans and everything, was that an actual street or was that on a soundstage?
That was actual street. It was, we filmed that in Watsonville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had the whole street decorated and
It was
going
pretty cool,
along. Yeah.
actually. It was pretty cool. I mean, it actually, the street really looked like it looks in the movie. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when we first came out of our dressing rooms and looked at it, Suzanne and I were like, holy Toledo, man, that's pretty wild. Because the whole place literally looked like a clown invasion.
Yeah. And Suzanne's house was an actual house, you know, where we went, so that wasn't a soundstage.
You know, the other interesting thing that I just realized is that all of the clowns were local. So they were from Santa Cruz area.
Yeah.
And you all weren't local, but everybody else pretty much was. And the other actors, no, but all the clowns are from Santa Cruz. Isn't that weird?
I mean, but that's kind of common. You know, being that I'm kind of on the other side and produce movies now, you usually, you know, when you travel someplace, you usually try to, you know, you bring the people you have to bring, and then you try to pick up as many people as locally, because you can imagine it's expensive to put people on planes or travel them and put them in hotels, and so you try to utilize local talent as much as you possibly can. Yeah.
And that's actually how I got involved, because I was already, they called our stunt team, which is based in San Francisco, so we were the closest local stunt team. And so that's how I ended up getting involved too.
Alrighty, any questions from the audience?
I met the Chiodo brothers in 2012, and they were supposed to be a revenge of the Killer Klowns from Outer Space. And I talked to, it was in Indianapolis where I met them. I'm from Pittsburgh. They were like, we should film it in Pittsburgh, because they filmed Dark Knight Rises that same year. But it never came to fruition, as Grant was saying earlier. But one of my favorite scenes is, what are you going to knock my block off? The decapitation uppercut.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, that was the first one, I think, in a movie, right? So Jason Takes Manhattan came out the following year, and they stole that on the rooftop. And then Mortal Kombat with Johnny Cage did it as well. But I thought that was very interesting. The last thing I wanted to say is, do you know someone named Steve Rockhold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Steve.
The last UFC in Pittsburgh, the main event was Luke Rockhold, his son, and he won the main event in Pittsburgh.
Oh, no kidding.
In 2017, yeah, I met Luke that weekend, and he said on social media his dad was a puppeteer, and I said, this is amazing, because I'm a big UFC and big Killer Klowns fan. But I wanted to see if you knew Steve Rockhold.
I played basketball with him a lot.
Yeah.
And the guy was like 6'11", a monster, and he played semi-pro basketball, and he was a monster. And his nickname was Rocky. So when I said Rocky, it was actually Steve
Yeah,
Rockford.
Steve Rockford, yeah.
Yeah, I met his sister at Monsterpalooza, and he just died surprisingly before that, and it was really sad because. Both he and I played a lot of basketball together and pickup ball at the gym at UC Santa Cruz, and it would have been just amazing to find out that we both were clowns. I never knew he was in the cast, never, until his sister confirmed it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, Steve was the clown who killed Officer Mooney.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was
Jumbo,
Steve.
right?
Yeah.
Was that Jumbo?
Yeah. That was Steve, and when the clown starts spinning, after he gets his nose shot,
Yeah.
Steve was on the turntable doing it. And he started going, I was down low spotting him. And yeah, he's a big guy, and I had to catch him when he went down.
Wow.
Is Luke still in Pittsburgh?
No, he was the last main event in Pittsburgh because UFC hasn't been here in 8 years, and he was the main event and he won.
Oh.
And that's why. And I met him a couple times, but he said on social media his dad was a puppeteer. So.
Very cool.
Grant, did you ever get to see Suzanne naked?
Ooh.
'Cause I did.
Ooh. Ooh.
I don't think I ever had that pleasure.
Thanks, Robert.
Yes, thanks, Robert.
This character stole my character from Weird Science. I mean, she was my girlfriend first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little trouble in our own movie because the other actor in the movie kind of pretty much thought that she was his girlfriend too.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
All right here.
Do you guys have a favorite clown? Like, is there anyone like that you like geared towards, not even necessarily playing, but just whenever you're watching the movie back?
I mean, are you asking the clowns or everybody?
Everybody, all of you guys. Is there anybody that like, or any kills that they do that you're?
I don't want to make these guys feel bad, but Shorty was always my favorite.
I don't know. The kill I liked was smashing the car off the cliff. You know, it took 2 days to film that. And I was on this contraption, like I mentioned, that was on the side of the car with the arm could pivot out where I could control it. And they got one scene where they just wanted to see the car pass by this way. And we had the guy driving, another stunt guy, was driving the car, and they put a light on low so they could see him in the car, and they put a light shining on me. So neither one of us could see. And we're going along, and we kind of knew about how long the shot was going to be, so we're going along, and we went way past that, and he's yelling to me. He had to yell because I couldn't hear. He's yelling at me. He's like, "Did they yell cut? Did they yell cut?" And I was about to say, "I don't know," and then I felt branches hitting me. And so I stuffed my head inside the car, and I yelled for him to stop. And just as he stopped, the lights that were on my shoes, to be the headlights, shone on a tree trunk right in front of me. So we only did that one shot there.
That's great.
So one of the clown that I liked the best was the clown you played when you were in the Silly Straw, because I thought the Silly Straw was hysterical.
Jumbo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was
Or
Bubbles.
Bubbles,
yeah. So I really enjoyed that, and I loved the shadow puppets too. I just thought that was so cool. Yeah.
You know, one of the most fun times in the movie for me was, it just was, you know, because sometimes you just look forward to silly little things, right? But, you know, when we had the clown car, and when the little clown gets out, and then all the other clowns come out, well, my favorite line in the whole movie was, delivery was actually from the extra that played the guard. I just think when he says, "What are you gonna do with those clowns, boys?" I just like, it cracks me up every single time I hear it still now today. But you know, when all the pies, you know, the pies that melt everybody,
Yeah.
that was actually all of us, the entire crew. We all had 2 pies in our hands, and we were standing there. So it was. Like, this was all done practically, right? This is old school. So that was all of us holding. It's like 1, 2, 3, go, 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 go. Everybody that had a free hand was throwing a pie.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Another question?
Can you talk about like how the balloon, when Debbie gets captured in the balloon, how did that get done?
Actually, it was she landed on the couch, cringed, got up off the couch. The special effects guy went and put the balloon there and cut with a thread and tied it to the balloon, and then they shot the balloon, put a little light on it. So it was just done practically. You know, she just got out, they put the balloon there, and they just cut the in-between out.
And then there was this giant half balloon that I stood on, and you could see through and you could see me. And then I worked with Mike on how to fall out of the balloon when they shot the
Oh, right,
balloon.
yeah.
I mean, you would be surprised at how many things we call it when you don't do external visual effects. They call it, doing your effects inside the camera, where you literally do things practically.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised at how many little wonderful gags they had to do things practically. Do you guys know what forced perspective is? So do you know when we were like running into the spaceship, we run into that little creature's mouth to go in the spaceship? Well, that was a little dude this big on a C-stand, which is just a little device that held up that little thing, with the camera right here and us running back there. So it's just, little things like that that create the magic of cinema. And this was very common back in the old days, and kind of like the old King Kong type of days when they're making all those kind of movies, right? And now everybody just does CGI and it's easy, but there's so many fun things that they did that on this movie, stuff like that.
And this movie's great, and the Kyoto brothers were so creative, and the whole cast was awesome. But I have to say honestly, what's made the movie really great is all of you guys. Seriously.
This really is a fan's movie, right? It really is.
I'm just so grateful to all of you. And you never think of, when you do a movie, when you're a young person, oh yeah, I got a movie, I'm gonna make money, I'm going away for 2 months. I mean, you're a young kid and you're just excited to be working, and you never think about what's going to happen to the film and how it's going to affect your life and other people's lives. And I feel like Killer Klowns has become, it's a movie, but it's a community. And it's like a big family and a community. It just keeps growing. And it's because of you guys, and so I'm really grateful. And I want to just say thank you to all of you. It means a lot to me to meet all of you and hear your stories.
Alrighty, with that, I'd like to thank you again for taking some time. Put your hands together for the Killer Klowns from Outer Space.